Good morning, evening, or night, wherever you are. Welcome to WHAM today. Take a deep breath, clear your mind, and let's drift through the whispers of today's world, one quiet thought at a time. As we wrap up Saturday, 28th June 2025, let's see what stories are unfolding around us. Israel's ongoing strikes in Gaza have reportedly caused a tragic loss of life, with at least 72 fatalities overnight and 62 deaths in total. Health officials reported these casualties occurred near a displacement shelter and other areas in Gaza City, exacerbating the existing humanitarian crisis. The United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, issued a warning about the alarming surge in malnutrition among children in the Gaza Strip, reporting that at least 66 children have died from malnutrition. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has denied allegations that Israeli soldiers were instructed to shoot Palestinians seeking aid, refuting claims from Gaza's health ministry that over 500 Palestinians have been killed while trying to obtain food. Chris Doyle has called for sanctions to compel Israel to cease luring Palestinians to aid locations and then shooting them. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has criticized the U.S.-backed aid operation in Gaza as inherently unsafe and resulting in fatality. In southern Lebanon, Israeli attacks have caused 3 deaths, continuing despite ongoing ceasefire negotiations, following a deadly strike on Nabatai the previous day. The Israeli army intercepted a missile launched by Yemen's Houthis, who claimed responsibility, prompting Israel to threaten a blockade in response. Netanyahu believes Israel's successes in the war may create opportunities for peace, though political divisions and security failures from October 7th still cast a shadow over his leadership. Turning to Iran, thousands mourned Iranian military commanders and scientists killed in strikes, chanting death to America and death to Israel during the funeral procession. Amid the war with Israel, Iran is pursuing suspected spies and infiltrators, raising concerns about a potential crackdown on political opponents and minorities. Afghan refugees in Tehran are in a precarious situation amid Israel's war on Iran. Emirates has extended its cancellation of flights to and from Tehran until July 5 due to the regional situation. Israel and the U.S. reportedly destroyed an Iranian nuclear site that had expanded after President Trump withdrew from the 2015 nuclear accord, necessitating action to neutralize an Iranian threat of his own making, according to nuclear experts. In the United States, Donald Trump has criticized Israeli prosecutors regarding Benjamin Netanyahu's corruption trial, hinting that the U.S. might reconsider its financial support to Israel if the prosecution continued. He stated he would not stand for Netanyahu's continued prosecution. Democrat Zoran Mamdani ran a grassroots campaign focusing on economic issues and opposition to Israel's actions in Gaza to lead in the New York mayoral primary. Former President Trump indicated that a ceasefire agreement between Israel and Palestine could be reached within the next week. Meanwhile, in Australia, Greens MP Sue Higginson is demanding a critical incident investigation into the NSW police arrest of former Greens candidate Hannah Thomas, who sustained serious facial injuries during a protest targeting a business in Belmore accused of supplying technology to Israel. More broadly, the article raises questions about who determines which countries are allowed to possess nuclear arms, suggesting that the actions of Israel and the U.S. have increased the likelihood of other countries wanting them. Israel's intelligence operations against Iran have sparked fears in Taiwan, raising concerns that Beijing could adopt similar tactics to cripple Taiwan's leadership or critical infrastructure. The Israel-Iran war has sent ripples of fear through global maritime trade and heightened security concerns in the Persian Gulf region. China faces increasing scrutiny and challenges both domestically and internationally. Czech intelligence accused Chinese diplomats of orchestrating a staged car collision targeting Taiwan's Vice President Hiroshima during her visit to Prague in March 24. This incident highlights the strained relations between China and Taiwan. A Parliament committee report cites China's expanding strategic presence in the Indian Ocean region as a challenge for India, focusing on the Belt and Road Initiative, BE, and its potential for debt trap diplomacy. The U.S. Army is preparing to counter China's efforts to keep it at bay, emphasizing increased firepower, advanced technology, and interoperability with regional allies as key deterrents. Domestically, austerity measures have led local officials to avoid dining out. In technology, China is rapidly advancing in AI algorithms, closing the gap with the U.S., which retains a lead in AI chip technology. China is constructing AI centers on the Tibetan Plateau, including the Yajiang-1 Computing Center, aiming to transform the region into a strategic hub for sustainable supercomputing by leveraging its environment for massive AI training tasks as part of the Eastern Data, Western Computing project. WeChat and Alipay are considered de facto stablecoins, providing China with a comparative advantage due to its developed regulatory framework for digital assets. In international relations, China is closely monitoring the U.S. involvement in the Israel-Iran conflict, potentially learning from perceived American hesitancy for prolonged wars and a possible retreat from global leadership. China's halt on rare earth exports is expected to stimulate the development of alternative production capacity overseas. The Chinese-made historical fantasy drama, Legend of Shanghai, has become a global streaming hit, indicating China's growing international influence in storytelling, topping rankings in 15 regions, including Disney, in Taiwan. Rongjiang County in Guizhou Province is preparing for further flooding after recent record floods resulted in at least 6 deaths, with authorities ordering evacuations due to forecasted heavy rain. Turning to Taiwan, Vice President Hiroshima was allegedly targeted by Chinese diplomats in a planned car collision during her visit to Prague in March 2024, according to Czech intelligence. This incident occurred after Xiao and Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te won the January election and highlights the ongoing tensions between Taiwan and China. In the Czech Republic, despite lacking official diplomatic ties with Taiwan, the government has accused China of planning intimidation tactics against Taiwan's vice president during her visit to Prague. This accusation includes allegations of following her and staging a car collision, underscoring the warming relations between Prague and Taiwan. Across the border in India, a Parliament committee report cites China's expanding strategic presence in the Indian Ocean region as a challenge, focusing on the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, and its potential for debt trap diplomacy. Meanwhile, in the United States, a top U.S. Army general says the U.S. Army is capable of countering China's plans to keep it at bay, emphasizing increased firepower, cutting-edge tech, and interoperability with regional allies as key for U.S. deterrence. China is closely monitoring the U.S. entanglement in the Israel-Iran conflict, potentially gaining insights into American interventionism. While the U.S. remains ahead in AI chip technology, China is rapidly catching up in algorithms, a key aspect of AI competition. Iran faces scrutiny over its nuclear capabilities and strained international relations despite a fragile ceasefire with Tel Aviv. EIA chief Rafael Grossi warns that Iran could quickly resume uranium enrichment, potentially within months, despite recent attacks on nuclear facilities by the U.S. and Israel. The concern is whether its 408.6 kilogram stockpile of highly enriched uranium was moved beforehand. Simultaneously, Iran is dealing with internal unrest executing 3 individuals accused of spying for Israel, bringing the total to 6 during the recent conflict. A state funeral in Tehran honored military commanders and nuclear scientists killed in the conflict with a public procession. Abbas Araghchi plays a crucial role in bolstering ties with allies and navigating relations with rivals. The broader context of Iran-US relations, marked by historical events from the 1979 revolution to modern digital warfare, underscores current tensions. United Kingdom's Business Secretary Jonathan Reynolds will meet with Lotus executives after reports surfaced that the car manufacturer might close its UK operations, putting 1,300 jobs at the Hethel plant in Norfolk at risk, despite Lotus's denial. In London, British authorities seized 2.4 metric tons of cocaine at a port from a ship originating from Panama, representing a major drug bust. In other news, Marilyn Manson's concert at the Brighton Centre on October 29 was cancelled following pressure from campaign groups and a local MP, with Ticketmaster processing refunds. The band Kneecap's performance at Glastonbury involved a chant directed at UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, and police are reviewing video footage for potential offences. Ukraine has reported destroying Russian helicopters and air defences in Crimea, using drone strikes, leading to explosions at a Crimean airfield. Ukraine's top commander noted that its forces are facing a renewed offensive against a key city on the Eastern Front. The potential utilization of interceptor drones as a cost-effective measure against Russia's increasing Shahed drone attacks on Ukrainian cities is being considered. Economically, McDonald's is expanding in Ukraine, with a new restaurant in Uzhhorod and plans for 10 more locations this year, indicating economic recovery. Russia experienced explosions at a Crimean airfield, following Ukraine's claim of drone strikes that destroyed Russian helicopters and air defenses. Russia is also reportedly increasing its deployment of Shahed drones to target Ukrainian cities. The G7 nations, including the United States, have agreed to exempt U.S. companies from parts of a global tax agreement. Japan is developing a support system for local governments, grappling with disaster waste management, addressing a critical expertise gap. The H-2A rocket marked its final flight with the successful launch of the Gaza environmental satellite. Relationfish is advocating for sustainably farmed fish and upscale dining to promote marine conservation. Japan and the US are in tariff talks, focusing on extending the suspension of reciprocal tariffs set to expire in July. Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba is urging Liberal Democratic Party leaders to unite to preserve the ruling coalition before a key House vote. A Tohoku Shinkansen bullet train was delayed after colliding with a bear. The invasive and highly toxic giant hogweed was identified for the first time in Japan at Hokkaido University in Sapporo. Japanese officials and atomic bombing survivors have condemned President Trump's comparison of a potential U.S. strike on Iranian nuclear facilities to the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, with Nagasaki Mayor Shiro Suzuki denouncing any use of nuclear weapons. IC President Tomoko Akane has stated that U.S. sanctions have a detrimental effect on third countries and violate international law. The European Union is contemplating trade restrictions on all eel species, including fry, adults, and processed goods, a move opposed by Japan. Thailand is currently witnessing significant political unrest as thousands of protesters in Bangkok demand Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra's resignation. Fueled by a leaked phone call allegedly related to a border dispute with Cambodia, the protests near the Victory Monument have drawn up to 4,000 participants. Thai nationalists accuse Shinawatra of appeasing Cambodia, especially after a Cambodian soldier died during a border clash in May. Adding to the nation's concerns, Thailand's position as the leading overseas pet food supplier to the United States is now threatened by potential shifts in US trade policy under the Trump administration, pushing importers to explore other options. Pakistan is currently facing a dual crisis of severe weather and escalating violence. Heavy rains have caused flash floods and building collapses, leading to at least 32 fatalities nationwide. The Meteorological Department has warned of further intense rainfall and potential flash flood. Public outrage has increased after a family of tourists perished in the Swat River while awaiting rescue. Compounding the country's challenges, a suicide car bombing struck an army convoy in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, resulting in the deaths of 14 soldiers and injuries to 25 others, including civilians. Initial reports indicate that 800 kilograms of explosives were used in the attack, causing substantial damage to surrounding homes. A faction of the Pakistani Taliban has claimed responsibility for the bombing. These incidents highlight Pakistan's susceptibility to climate change and what the government considers climate injustice and a lack of adequate global assistance. Canada, currently holding the G7 presidency, has brokered a deal among member states to shield U.S. multinationals from the global minimum tax through a side-by-side approach, allowing the U.S. to tax both domestic and foreign earnings of its firms. However, Canada's digital tax is causing friction, with claims that it could cost U.S. companies billions and potentially trigger new U.S. tariffs, allegedly leading to suspended trade negotiations. In Ottawa, residents near a Tesla dealership are showcasing Canadian flags, apparently in protest connected to Elon Musk and Donald Trump, fueled by unspecified worries about Canadian sovereignty. Ukraine is reeling after a Russian drone strike targeted the port city of Odessa, resulting in the deaths of a married couple and injuries to 17 others, as the war continues into its 1.22 honest day. Meanwhile, seeking to offset curtailed pipeline exports to Europe due to sanctions stemming from the 2022 invasion of Ukraine, Russia is actively working to boost its liquefied natural gas (LNG) export. Australia is currently seeing internal strife within the Liberal Party regarding gender representation. Labour's Tanya Plibersek has criticized Liberal objections to gender quotas. She disputes claims that Labour's rules undermine democracy. Angus Taylor, the Shadow Defence Minister, opposes changes aimed at promoting Liberal women. These events occur amidst ongoing reviews of the coalition's election loss. The discussion regarding vaccines often includes concerns about thimerosal, a mercury-based preservative. However, it's important to note that thimerosal was phased out of most vaccines back in 2021. Turning to China, Chinese-American number theorist Yiteng Zhang, at the age of 70, has accepted a full-time professorship. He will join Sun Yat-sen University in southern China. Zhang will be based at the Institute of Advanced Study, Hong Kong, located in the Greater Bay Area. Germany is pivoting towards a more robust defense posture, with ambitions to establish the largest military within Europe. This strategic realignment is largely influenced by the conflict in Ukraine and anxieties surrounding a possible return of Donald Trump to the U.S. presidency. Chancellor Friedrich Merz is championing increased defense spending and constitutional amendments to support this objective. At the Social Democratic Party Congress, Olaf Scholz reflected on his time in government and warned against misjudging Russian President Vladimir Putin's resolve. Turning to Tasmania, Australia, artist Karen Koch launched the Pootastic Tasmanian paint-off. This initiative, inspired by German artist Werner Hertel's cow dung paintings, led to the commissioning of Tasmanian artist Mel Hill. Hill's crafted artwork featuring wombats using wombat poo and a patamelon using patamelon poo, sourced directly from Koch's garden, showcasing an unconventional artistic approach. Hungary witnessed a massive display of defiance as tens of thousands possibly as many as 200,000 participated in Budapest Pride, ignoring a government ban. The march served as a direct challenge to Prime Minister Viktor Orban's policies, which many perceive as curtailing democratic freedoms in the lead-up to upcoming elections. Budapest mayor voiced support, urging citizens to defend freedom, dignity, and equal rights. Attendees risked potential police action and fines to join the event, which organizers hailed as the largest LGBTQ pride celebration ever held in the country. Serbia saw escalating tensions as anti-government protests in Belgrade led to clashes with police. Riot police deployed tear gas against thousands demonstrating near government buildings. These demonstrations follow months of nationwide rallies against President Alexander Vucic's administration. Allegations of government corruption, specifically related to a roof collapse, fuel the protesters' anger. Meanwhile, supporters of President Vucic staged a counter-protest, adding another layer to the complex political situation. Protest organizers are now threatening a civil disobedience campaign to further pressure the government. New Zealand has suspended aid to the Cook Islands due to unease over infrastructure agreements with China. The move has drawn criticism, with some labeling it patronizing, highlighting New Zealand's anxieties about China's expanding presence in the Pacific. Experts caution that this action might be seen as forceful. Furthermore, New Zealand sleep specialists are worried about the ease of access to over-the-counter melatonin, raising alarms about possible reliance on it, or other sleep medication. In other developments, Elizabeth Nichols, a dementia patient, and Amy Vercoe, wife of Miles Vercoe, who disappeared from an Auckland rest home in May, have both gone missing from rest homes. Sudan's military has agreed to a week-long ceasefire in El Fasher. This decision follows a request from UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres. The ceasefire intends to aid the distribution of resources. Widespread food insecurity continues amidst battles. Starving Sudanese citizens are now eating weeds and wild plants to survive. The global surge in cocaine use is raising alarms, according to a United Nations report revealing a worldwide increase in usage, confiscations, and drug-related death. The report also indicates that cocaine trafficking routes are expanding into Africa and Asia, contributing to rising levels of violence across Europe. Meanwhile, in Colombia, tragedy struck as a landslide in the northwest claimed the lives of 22 people. Rescue efforts continue as 8 individuals remain missing. India is set to expand its maritime influence, with Mazagon Dock shipbuilders acquiring a controlling stake in Colombo Dockyard. This acquisition will give the Indian company control over the facility located within Colombo Port. The strategic move comes amid New Delhi's concerns about increasing Chinese influence in the region. Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo recently formalized a peace accord in the United States. The agreement centers on neutralizing the Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda, FDLR. This Hutu militant group has been a source of regional instability. Rwandan Foreign Minister Olivier Nduhungirehe stressed the need for a verifiable end to any state support for the FDLR. This commitment aims to ensure long-term stability. France began enforcing a nationwide smoking ban in public parks and on beaches this Sunday, with those who violate the new regulation facing potential fines. Adding to the nation's legal landscape, the French police officers implicated in the controversial 2020 beating of Marisol Zekler, a black music producer, are slated to appear in court, a trial that follows widespread national condemnation of the incident. Peru is facing scrutiny regarding Pope Leo XIV's past actions as a bishop. A Times investigation explored his record on sex abuse cases. The findings present a complex picture. Some instances show strong support for victims, Other situations involve accusations of failing victims. Bulgaria has seen widespread protests against the nation's planned adoption of the euro. Citizens are demanding a referendum on the change. The country joined the European Union in 2000 and is working towards Eurozone membership. Europe is currently gripped by an intense heat wave, with temperatures soaring to 42 degrees C across several nations, prompting urgent warnings regarding extreme heat, wildfires, and public health. Spain's meteorological office has issued a special heat warning in response to the escalating temperatures. Separately, within Spain, Ballon d'Or winner Aitana Bonmati has been hospitalized after contracting meningitis. Portugal is also battling the heat wave, with authorities on high alert for potential wildfires. Greece is similarly affected, with emergency services preparing for a surge in heat-related illnesses. France is facing similar challenges, implementing measures to protect vulnerable populations from the extreme temperatures. Indonesia is currently managing an outbreak of hemorrhagic fever with renal syndrome, HHS, a hantavirus-linked disease. 8 confirmed cases have been reported across Yogyakarta, West Java, East Nusa Tenggara, and North Sulawesi. Health authorities cite rodent exposure and inadequate sanitation as primary drivers of the outbreak, prompting increased vigilance to detect further transmission. Bangladesh has successfully cleared a significant portion of its debt to Adani Power. The country paid $384 million to satisfy obligations stemming from a 2017 power purchase agreement. This move reflects Bangladesh's commitment to managing its financial responsibilities effectively. Okay, I understand. I will focus on creating immersive and detailed news summaries, ensuring each country's segment starts with the country name within the first sentence. I will use short, clear sentences and prioritize accuracy and completeness, avoiding unnecessary phrases and focusing on governance, international relations, major policies, and societal trends. I will exclude incidents involving individuals unless they have significant geopolitical, economic, or policy impact, and I will strive for a smooth and rhythmic flow in the narration. In the Netherlands, a NATO summit saw former President Donald Trump commending allies for their increased defense spending pledges. Greece has appointed a hard-right lawmaker as the new migration and asylum minister, suggesting a possible change in immigration policies. The appointment occurred during a broader political reshuffle within the government. Meanwhile, in Venice, protests overshadowed the wedding celebrations of Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez Bezos, with demonstrators voicing concerns about rising inequality and disregard for the city's residents. Slogans such as "Kisses," "Yes, Bezos," "No" were prominent during the demonstrations. Shifting to South Africa, the Democratic Alliance, D, led by John Steenhuisen, has withdrawn from the National Dialogue Initiative, dismissing it as pointless. In Uganda, President Yoweri Museveni is aiming for a 7th term in office, which could extend his presidency to almost 50 years. Elsewhere, in Europe, the son of a Norwegian princess faces charges of rape and sexual assault following an investigation involving numerous alleged victims. Turning to criminal matters, a suspect in the disappearance of 34 Filipino cockfighters between 2021 and 2022 has implicated police officers and a female celebrity in the case. Regarding weather, a tropical depression has formed near southeast Mexico and is expected to strengthen into a tropical storm over the coming weekend. Finally, in sports, Chelsea secured a victory against Benfica with goals from Christopher Nkunku, Pedro Neto, and Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall, advancing to the Club World Cup quarter-finals, where they are set to compete against Brazil's Palmeiras. The match proceeded despite prior weather-related delays. And that's a wrap for today's news, because even headlines need a nap. Stay curious, stay kind, and let the noise fade as you find your quiet. Take care, stay awesome, and I'll see you next time on WHAM Today.